Hopefully, oh, there we
There
go.
it is. Here we are. Hey, everybody. This is Christians and Cocktails. This is our Monday night religious discussion program at the Sunshine Cathedral. A little bit religious education, a little bit connection, a little bit entertainment, a little bit of chaos. We put it all together, and that's Christians and Cocktails. I'm Darrell Watkins, the senior minister. Our official sort of engineer, producer, hostess, Pearl Mester kind of person is the Reverend Dr. Robert Griffin, but he's frozen right now. He's going to fix all that and join us in real time ASAP. Then also with us is Dennis McWilliams-Ramos and Tito McWilliams-Ramos. They are key volunteers at the Sunshine Cathedral in the AV ministry, in the social media ministry, in the worship ministry. Dennis's former board chair, so we keep them busy. And then also with us is the Reverend Margarita Rodriguez, who is our spiritual companion, our director of spiritual companionship at the Sunshine Cathedral. So that's who we are and what we got going on. And here comes, is that you? That's Robert. That's who'd we lose?
Yay!
Did we lose someone?
You lost my twin. You lost my twin.
Oh, the fake Robert. Okay. So now we're all here. Robert, the executive director of the Sunshine Cathedral, executive minister of the Sunshine Cathedral, and my husband. Most important job. Also the busiest job. So that's who we are. That's what we're about. And so let's get going. Tomorrow, of course, just a little word. Tomorrow is the election in the United States, a national election. Also, state, county, cities. We just elect everybody. So if you haven't already voted and you're registered to vote, please vote. Get out tomorrow. I don't know. You may have to wait. Maybe lines are long. I don't know. But do it anyway. Please just do it. It's very, very important that we participate in the health of our country. So, and so many people who were denied the right to vote in previous generations fought and worked and waited, and some even died, so that everyone would have unfettered access to the ballot. So to honor them, as well as in our own self-interest, let's vote every time. So if you haven't voted yet, please vote tomorrow. Okay, so there's that. And now let's, and also, here's another thing, we gotta say this. Wednesday, Share in the Chair, we have a special Share in the Chair. It's not just gonna be one person in the chair, it's gonna be 10. There's 10 of us. And what we're gonna do is we're going to discuss from various churches, a synagogue, various places. We're coming together to discuss the election results, just to offer a pastoral response to whatever happens. We're not predicting what's going to happen. We're just going to respond pastorally to whatever does happen and pray for the country. So that's going to be a very special Share in the Chair on Wednesday at 6. So join us for that and help us spread the word. Okay, now let's do Christians and Cocktails. We got some questions. Tito is already bored, so he gets to, or distracted or something. Girl down. She has left. Ooh. Oh my goodness.
Rapture.
Really? Wow.
He has left the room.
So as I said, Robert is our, oh look, he's back. Tito, ask us something.
Right, because
before you disappear again.
I thought the dog was doing something weird over here. Sorry. Okay.
Blame it on Buddy. Poor Buddy.
Poor Buddy.
If the sacraments aren't magical, then why do we bother with them?
Who said they're not magical? Who said that?
Somebody said it.
Somebody said it.
They must be magical to you, huh?
Well, the truth is they aren't magical to everyone. And magic is just another word for sacred. It means that there's something powerful. Something is charged, with some sort of power. And some cultures would call that magic. Some people would call that something else. But we are an ecumenical community. And so if I were Baptist, baptism is sort of an embodied witness. There's nothing sort of magical about it. It's a sort of a testimony. an embodied testimony. And Holy Communion, or the Lord's Supper, is a memorial where you're remembering Jesus's Last Supper. And so it's special, it's important, but it's not. There's no special grace conferred. If you never did it, you'd probably be okay. So there's that. Then there are other churches that other denominations where maybe Methodist or Presbyterian, where they believe that baptism is very important, maybe even essential, maybe even necessary. It can happen younger and with less water, but still you got to do it. And communion, Christ is somehow spiritually present. And that the seminary word for that is consubstantiation. But that somehow Christ is spiritually present in the ritual, in the elements and or in the sharing of them. And so it becomes a little more special, a little more sacred, because the Spirit of Christ is literally present in that moment. And so it's very, they take it very seriously. Then if you're a Roman Catholic, it's all about that. It's all about communion. I mean, that's why you go to church. I mean, you may suffer through a sermon, but you're there for the Mass, for the Holy Communion. And that becomes a very big deal. And some high church Anglicans agree with this, and actually Lutherans agree with this, where the feast somehow becomes literally, even though it looks and tastes like bread and it looks and tastes like wine, somehow it's literally transformed into the flesh and blood of Jesus. And you're sharing that. And if you put too fine a point on that and ride that too far, it's going to seem gross. In fact, the language was so offensive to first century Roman pagans that they accused the first century Christians of being cannibals, because it's what it sounds like, right? So, but if this bread is literally becoming Jesus, well, that's super sacred, that's super magical, and very important to people who believe that. Then if you were like a Unitarian Universalist, you can probably take it or leave it, but if you take it, it's about unity with one another. It's about forming community. It's about remembering that this is grain from the earth and the fruit of the vine pressed from natural sources. So we are dependent on, interconnected with the planet. We are forming communities. We're celebrating rituals together. We have coffee hour, we have potlucks, we have picnics. And this sort of symbolizes all of that, of coming together and being together and sharing together. And so that's very important, not very magical, but still symbolically very meaningful. Well, then you come to Sunshine Cathedral. And all of those beliefs, different as they are, you can find in the room. So, and sometimes someone started out 6 or 7 years ago with this belief and they've switched along the way. They, the higher, more magical thinking has come down a little bit. The lower, more mundane thinking has come up a little bit. And so it isn't that it isn't magical. It isn't that it's just magical or that it's magical for everybody. And so what we tend to do is we offer it in a variety of ways over time. If you came every Sunday or online or in person for 18, 24 months, you will have seen the communion liturgy presented in at least half a dozen different ways. And in each time, it's sort of trying to connect with a different experience. And then if it's not exactly what you want or are used to, then you just sort of work with it in your own space and make it be what you want. Because we believe in grace equal to every need. We believe in an omnipresent God. So whatever you need can happen, whether or not we say these words or do it this way or not. And so what we're trying to do is try to cast a wide net so that over time, we touch something important in you for it. So we baptize if you want. If you don't want to be baptized, we say, well, your desire to be part of us is your immersion in the community. That's your baptism. If you want to celebrate that with a water ritual, we got plenty of water. We offer communion. And we offer it as a reminder of our communion with one another and with our source. Whatever else you need it to be on top of that, you get to have, whether we spoon feed it to you or not. And so it's not, they aren't magical in the way that some churches would present them as this is what you must believe and this is the way it has to be done or it's not legit. That we don't do. But we try to keep it open and broad enough that it is whatever you need it to be, and what you need can change and that need will still be met. That's pretty good magic, I think, or just hospitality, or just love, or just creativity, but that's just our approach to it. So it is important, rituals are important, as long as they point beyond themselves and not to themselves, and as long as they bring us together rather than divide us. So we do the sacraments because they mean so many different things to so many different people at so many different times in their lives. That's why we offer it. What they mean and what they mean to you, well, that's for you to answer. We can't answer that for you. That annoys some people because they want rules and they want someone to enforce the rules. And that's not how we approach the sacraments, but that does not mean they aren't super special and super important and serve some deep purpose in our lives. Now, because it's so individual and it can be what you need it to be, and what you need can even change over time, all of you can respond to this as well as I can, because you tell me what it means to you, and then that's the answer. So somebody do that.
I remember growing up in the Baptist church, we only ever did communion during Passover. So, you know, because that's what it was. It was remembrance of a Passover meal. It was Jesus's Last Supper, et cetera, et cetera. Sure. So that was the only time we ever did it. And I always remembered, oh, do we get to have the cracker and the juice today? Oh, I want to do it. You know, so that was an exciting part of church for me, because, you know, it was something special, something different. We didn't do that all the time. So I'm curious, why do we do it at Sunshine Cathedral every Sunday and not honor it as Jesus would have done it during Passover?
Well, that was actually an easy answer. The way, or the followers of the way movement, and that's what the followers of Jesus were called before they were called Christians. And so the followers of the Jesus way, once he was executed, they had started out as a Jewish movement. They later reached out to the Gentile communities, and you can see Paul, who did that a lot, and then the others who weren't as excited about that, and their arguments throughout the New Testament. They were inclusive of everyone. They just thought this is a Jewish movement, become Jewish, and then once you're Jewish, join this movement within Judaism. Paul's like, no, let's cut out a step. If they just want to follow Jesus, let's let them follow Jesus. So there was some debate about that. But the followers of Jesus, being in the beginning mostly Jews, they would still worship on the Sabbath, Friday night, from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. That's the Sabbath. And so they would worship in their synagogues. They would worship in their Jewish settings. Now, the story was that Jesus's tomb had been found empty on the first day of the week, which is Sunday. So these Jews would worship in their Jewish community on Friday night, and then on Sunday morning meet in secret to remember Jesus. And they would do this by reenacting his Last Supper. So they would meet in homes or in catacombs, which is why in the Catholic Church, altars have to be consecrated with the relic of a saint, because the first altars were graves. And so they would meet in these secret places, and they would remember Jesus and share this feast. So yes, I think when Jesus says, when you do this, remember me, I think he's saying next time you gather for Passover, remember me. I'm not going to be here with you. So like, invite me in, let me be here by remembering me, keep me alive that way, which is also a Jewish tradition to remember loved ones on special anniversaries, the anniversary of their death, for example. And so I think Jesus just made a very reasonable and very Jewish request. I'm probably not going to be here with you next year. So when you do this next time, remember me. But the early Christians developed a ritual early of the Lord's Supper, which is meeting on Sunday in private, in secret, remembering the Lord with the Lord's Supper. So Christians have actually been, the Eucharist has actually been central to Christian worship since the very beginning. And then once we lost our connection to Judaism, we stopped doing it. It stopped being a two-part process. Synagogue on Friday night, catacomb on Sunday morning, and it just became Sunday morning worship. So the people who take communion once a month or once a quarter or once a year, that's fine. We can do whatever we want to. Who cares? Does God care? But they are the ones that have evolved or altered the tradition. The tradition was you met early on Sunday and you had the meal. So it's one of the few super traditional things that we do, even though we aren't traditional in how we try to make you think about it. But we do offer it. And if you want it a lot, it's hard to get it if it's not offered. If you don't want it a lot, you can refuse it if it's offered. So yeah, if you want to take it 3 times a year, well, it's offered 52. So just pick the 3 you want. But if you want it all the time, good news, we're offering it all the time.
Yeah, the sacraments for me aren't aren't totally necessary, but I do enjoy them because it kind of reminds me of the good things of church back when I was a kid, as opposed to like having information drilled into my head and having to repeat prayers that I have to learn over and over and over again. So just the little things like communion. Growing up Catholic, if you do not confess, you cannot get communion. Now I don't have to do that. I just get communion. So it's kind of like
I get the
I don't have to confess anymore.
Tito, I will set up a special confessional for you just this Sunday. I want to know that confession.
Who has the time? Gosh, that would take forever. And also, there's just something we learn more and we experience more deeply and we remember more when things are tactile. And so if I were in a Pentecostal church, I would dance around a lot, I'd lift my hands a lot, and I'd clap a lot, because those are tactile experiences. That you embody the moment. The same thing in more high church churches. You're slinging the incense, you're slinging the water, you've got the pretty pictures to look at, you're kneeling, you're standing, you're sitting, you're coming forward, you're getting the bread, it's tactile, it's embodied. And I have been to churches, there aren't many, mostly it's one of those two, it's like you're super exuberant or you have all this ritual. But I have been to churches where you sit, you sing a song or two, and you listen to someone talk for 45 minutes. That is not, in my opinion, that is not transformative in the way that tactile things are. So, and again, at the Sunshine Cathedral, we kind of do it all. You can get your dance on, you get your happy clappy going, or you can take communion, get some water sprinkled on you. I mean, we offer so many things, but there is something really experiential. So when we experience it physically, we tend to remember it better and think about it more deeply and have fond feelings about it. So there is the tactile experience of eating a piece of bread or holding someone's hand or crossing yourself or dancing around or whatever. These things are, they help us experience something more than just listening and, maybe nodding off. We don't even have attention spans. Like in an old Puritan service, you might hear like an hour-long sermon. No one, if you could try to pay attention for an hour, you wouldn't remember it all. Our attention spans have just changed over the centuries because of our stimulus has changed and the way we interact has changed. So you sit there and listen to a 45-minute sermon if you want to, but you're going to remember either 3 points or a feeling that you had. Right. You were scared or afraid, angry or happy or amused or whatever. That's what you remember. People are always, and I learned this early on, people say, "Oh, I love that sermon on Sunday." And this was a legitimate question because once I'm done, I'm done. So I don't even necessarily remember much about it. So I would say, "What did you like about it?" And they couldn't say like, "Oh, when you said this brilliant line," or "when you really broke this down." And I soon realized what they liked about it is they felt something. They felt catharsis, or they felt joy, or they felt included. So the experience of the sermon is what they took with them. Not, some genius thing I thought I'd said that even I had forgotten, and I'm the one who said it. So it was how you feel. Well, that's true for the whole service. You may not even remember the words to a song, but you remember how the song made you feel. You may not even know why we light the candles, but you know how the environment makes you feel. And so that's why we do a lot of the things that we do, is to create an experience that you may or may not can articulate, later, but you remember that you had a positive experience, hopefully positive enough that you want to have it again and again. Some of that sounds like spiritual companionship kind of stuff. What do you think about that, Margarita?
Well, for me, the sacraments, like Tito, I think they're not, I mean, not an important piece, but I like them. I like the sharing, because anytime that you have a sacrament, it's shared experience. So that's the piece that that connects with me, is that sharing with others, with the community. So for me, that's what it represents. And in terms of communion, you know, like Tito said, in the Catholic, you know, we had to confess, and it was just so, you know, complicated to get there. At one point, you know, my mom was divorced, and she had to explain to us she couldn't go to communion because it was in the 70s, so they wouldn't let her go to communion because she was divorced. So to me, that was very strange. I mean, I was a kid and I was listening to all that, but inside of me, I was like, what is this? Like, I couldn't understand it. It was, to me, like there was something wrong. So the day that I walked into an MCC and saw a different kind of communion, I was like, oh, this is something that I can really, really go with, you know, because it was so embracing, and it was all about the love and everybody included. And that to me, that's every time that we say that at church, to me, that's just heart opening, because the fact that we can include anybody at the table, it's huge, because there are so many people that are excluded from the table in other places.
Yeah.
So for me, that's really big.
And this idea of being excommunicated, of you can't receive communion, you can't participate in this ritual that we're telling you is the primary ritual. This is like the whole reason to show up, and we're going to let you do it. That's a form of shunning. And you know, shunning never feels good. Like, who's better because they were shunned? And so, yeah, we never want to do that. And we also, because we really, really believe in this idea of omnipresence, that God is everywhere, which means God is everything. And so, and yet, God is too big for us to understand completely. I mean, we understand our experience of it now. We understand what we understand right now, but there's more. You know, I understand what I've experienced. I don't even know what all I haven't experienced. And so, you know, it's a journey into the mystery. But because God is omnipresent, because everything is part of God, because God expresses in, through, and as everything, then all of these things can be whatever we need them to be, because God's that big. And so whatever we need everything to be, it's not up to us. I mean, I don't have to say, you have to believe this, or if you don't agree with this, you can't play with us. No, because God's too big for that. You believe what you believe, and God is probably big enough to meet you there and let it be what you need it to be, for you to experience what you need to experience. I don't even have to try to control that. I don't even have any interest in trying to control that. And so, and a sacrament is an outward sign of inward grace. These are signs. These are ways of sort of acting out what we believe is an inward event, which is divine love. Always calling us into wholeness, always guiding us to our highest and best good, always loving us no matter what. And so communion, confirmation, rites of healing, baptism, whatever it is, these are outward signs of inward grace. And grace is free. And grace is, you know, grace isn't denied to anyone, because that's what makes it grace, is that it's free. It's offered to everyone all the time. So that's sort of our sacramental theology at the Sunshine Cathedral. A little bit different than in some places, but it's working for us. We're doing okay.
And just Reverend Ann said if we want to do confession, she'd be willing to help with the confessions.
I think it was
Well,
directed
and
just
honestly,
at you, Tito. I think it was just directed at you, Tito.
And I think this has happened with more of our clergy than just me, because me not so much. But in the last, I don't know, 20, 25 years, I've probably heard half a dozen confessions. Someone wants it. Well, there's a right there, there's a right for it in the Book of Common Prayer. Let me get my book, and like it's Burger King. We'll just do it your way. Just whatever you need, we'll try. I don't know that we'll do it to your satisfaction, but if you need it, we'll try. I won't try to be a moil. I won't try to perform elective surgery on your baby. But but short of anything scary like that, we'll try.
And
So
I think we're using modern day language now instead of rights of a confession. I think we get more of, hey, can I talk to you for just a minute? And I think it's in the communication that the language that we use now is more about, I need to talk to you for a minute, or can I borrow, can I have some time? And I think that kind of goes back to what Margarita was mentioning about, it's about being relationship with each other is what we're listening to one another without the shame, without the blame, and just saying, hey, can I talk to you? Whether it's over, a number one at McDonald's with no lettuce, or if it's, at the church around a meeting table in the office or whatever. But I think people find the language that they use, that they need today in order to communicate the same sacraments and rights that we've heard for several years. And so, and I think that's one of the things I enjoy about Sunshine Cathedral with a lot of other places, well, with a lot of others, but Sunshine Cathedral is certainly that we say everything is open to anyone who wants to receive. And I'm always kind of taken back every now and then when someone said, well, at my old church, we used to do it this way. In my older age, I now say, well, you're welcome to go back to that church and do it that way, or be a willing participant in how we do it here and be open to what may come from the way we do it at the Sunshine Cathedral. But I do think people in 2020 are finding new languages instead of putting new wine in old wineskin. They're finding a new way of saying, this is what I need when it comes to confession or any of those other things.
and we're in 2020 especially. I mean, this might have been true in 2019, but it is true in 2020, is that we're having to find new ways to do everything. And so I know people who they've been on a communion fast for most of 2020 because it's super important to them that it happened in the room. And some people, they still aren't gathering at all in a room. So they just haven't had communion, which is hard for them because they've been told it's very important. But now they've also been told it needs to happen under the same roof, and they can't get under a roof. And I understand that you want communion to be in community, but we also live in a world where, we are in 3 different places right now, sharing a conversation with people in 100 other locations. I mean, we are in community in a way that wasn't even possible 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And so sometimes you just have to think, let something be new. Let something evolve out of the need. And so, I mean, if I never took communion again, I'd probably be okay. But if I super wanted it and super needed it, I'd be trying to find a way to have it, especially in a world where we are where we can be so electronically connected. And we do that at Sunshine Cathedral. We say, if you're worshiping with us at home, get a piece of bread, get some juice or grape soda or wine or even water, whatever you got, get an animal cracker, whatever you got, and just participate with us. The prayers that we're saying, they don't end at the wall, they reach you. The grace of God, it's not limited to our address, it's everywhere. And so you've joined us in community already. One step further, grab a piece of bread and join us in this. We really, really believe that God is big enough for that. We really, really do. I'm not trying to be insulting to people who they've got their way of doing it. If you really need to be under the roof, that's your business. But 2020 has made that more problematic than it's been in other times. And the technology of 2020 has also given us possibilities that at least we at Sunshine Cathedral have not been willing to overlook.
And I think, Dora, just to add to that, the bigger picture that also, just remembering a time when so many in the LGBT community were told or basically denied the opportunity for communion, as well as some of the other rights. My mind quick goes back to a point in time where this young kid was dying from AIDS, and they asked the priest to come and do last rites. Well, the priest refused because the kid was gay, and so they reached out, and understand me, you know, I'm not a priest, but here's what I can do. So I like to fight now that we're globally with our sacraments and rites as much as we possibly can be. And I like that speaks to that still same person somewhere in South Dakota who may not know that they can experience an open communion, can really even experience it through technology in a way that they never may be able to experience otherwise because they have been denied. So I think just the openness of how we share, how we do what we do is not only, as you just said, about the physical building, but really we have a global impact to say all of these are open to anyone who wish to receive.
I haven't done it many times, but I have done it, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. I've actually ordained people over the phone. They'd completed their academic training. They were ready for everything, but they couldn't get to me. And I just refused to let that be a problem. Like, you've done all the work. You're prepared. You're ready to do this work. Once I signed the piece of paper, that's the legal thing. And so, but the ritual is what makes it, you know, a spiritual thing. And I realized that the laying on of hands is part of that. But I can't get to your head. Your head can't get to my palm. But your hand and face, your hand is on the phone and the phone is connected to your face. My hand is on a phone and and our voices are, it's like we're face to face. If grace is real, that's not a deal breaker. And so, I mean, I've ordained people on the phone. We do communion on the internet. I've never baptized anyone virtually, but the day is coming. But I think we have a staff member. I think the Reverend Dr. B.K. Hipsher has. I think she has baptized people virtually. That's grace. The sacraments are outward signs of inward grace. We are going to celebrate and affirm and recognize the grace. We're not going to let the symbol get in the way. We're going to let the symbol evolve so that we can find ways of celebrating, recognizing and celebrating the inward event of grace.
Darrell, Reverend Terry Steed Pierce asked a question. She says, you all are meeting with a limited capacity. How are you all offering the communion prayers?
Oh, I see. We do a blessing, just one blessing. We do the thing. And also at Sunshine Cathedral, we had a long-standing tradition. I mean, gosh, this must have been 20 years. I continued it when I got there, and it was in effect then. And I've been there 14 years. So this must have been, this has gone back probably 18, 20, 22 years, who knows, long time, of anointing people after the sermon. Come forward, say prayers together, anoint. Then we have the peace, the offering, and then we go into communion. And then when you come forward for communion, we do it by intention, and then offer a blessing. Well, all of that's out there. We're not touching people for the anointing. We're not touching people for communion. We're not whispering in people's ears. We've got our mask on. So we've just changed everything. So now, instead of coming forward for anointing, I mask up. I get the wand with the water, for the asperges, and I walk through the room. And instead of oil, we use water. I sprinkle people that way. No touching. And then the peace, we wish each other peace, but we don't hug or shake hands, but we dance. So, we sing a lively song and we dance. And so that's our exchange of peace. And then at communion, same liturgy, there are litanies where people are participating. Right now, we just switched last Sunday, and this happens 2 or 3 months out of the year, sometimes 4, where the congregation is actually the concelebrants. Everyone's doing it, not just a minister. We've had deacons celebrate, clergy, guest clergy, and the congregation itself. Right now, it's kind of a combination, a clergy person and the congregation. They're going back and forth. And so the blessing right now is that the congregation are the concelebrants. They're in the blessing of the celebration. And then the clergy celebrant usually says, we have the little cups, little boarding house cups and bread that we each serve ourselves in a little plastic bag to keep everything, sterile and whatnot. But before we do that, the clergy celebrant usually says, and my blessing for you is, and then she gives one blessing for everyone all at once, which is kind of a Methodist thing. Methodists actually saw that in Methodist churches where people come forward, kneel, take communion 10 or 12 at a time, and then the minister would give a blessing to everyone all at once. And so that's what we're doing. We're everyone gets the same blessing in the same moment, instead of individual blessings. We also have prayer cards that we call healing rays, and we've always given those out at the altar call. Now we put it in the worship bags, but so you actually get a printed individual blessing also at Sunshine Cathedral. So yeah, we just do what we can, and it's always growing and evolving. This is what we're doing as of November 2nd. If you ask me on December 2nd, it might be all very different. And if you ask me on November 2nd of 2021, I promise it will be different. But it's always, it's always working with it, playing with it, which is a great comfort and joy for some people and great source of consternation for others. Excellent. Nice, Tito. You gave us a question that ate up almost the whole
30
time.
minutes.
I think that was a wonderful discussion.
Right? We're like half. We're like, the team is down by half. I'm like, oh, well, good. We can take time with the questions. One question. This was the sacrament show. Well, you know what? We need to wrap up in the next 3 or 4 minutes. So let's don't ask a brand new question, but is there any follow-ups? Like Reverend Steve Pierce just asked that wonderful follow-up about how we do the blessing at community. Let's see if we have any more follow-ups, either online or from the team here. Any follow-up questions about the sacraments? I will say this. Oh, go ahead.
I just saw. I noticed Reverend Ann made a comment about something. I forget what the first thing she said about trigger language. Like maybe it was about confession could be trigger language or something. And it's kind of triggered me to think about what other languages are out there that could be trigger language for people when they are being confronted with sacraments and rites and stuff in church. And again, I think that's a wonderful opportunity to explore what it is that triggers us through conversations. Have those conversations with somebody or someone that we trust that can lead us through them, so that we can continue to receive the openness of whatever we offer through Sunshine Cathedral, so that people don't see things as a hindrance and they don't hear it and then shut down because it brings back some horrific experience, but yet we can walk that journey with people, especially if it's Tito who needs to confess at Burger King as we eat a Whopper #1. Just say.
We have been asked recently, I forget if it's New Jersey or New York, but a very sweet lady sent us a letter actually asking why we don't, why we stopped consecrating communion. And but we haven't stopped celebrating communion. We do it every Sunday. The liturgy changes all the time, but we haven't stopped. And so I just wondered what that meant, because we do it every week. But then that got me to thinking that really we stopped using the word consecration 5 or 6 years ago, because we'd say words of institution, prayer of consecration, invitation to communion. Like that's pretty standard. I did that for dozens of years in my own ministry. And just a few years ago, we stopped using that language. First of all, I don't believe Jesus instituted the sacrament of Holy Communion. I think Jesus celebrated the Last Supper and said the Passover meal and asked his friends to remember him when they did it next time. So I stopped calling it words of institution because I don't believe he instituted a sacrament, or for that matter, a church. He gave birth to a movement. He gave birth to a way of thinking about God and the kingdom of God and how to see ourselves as children of God. Oh, I love me some Jesus. And I am proud to be part of the church that tries to follow Jesus. But the idea of what we call church I don't think it ever crossed Jesus's mind, right? So we stopped saying words of institution because I don't think Jesus instituted communion. I think he celebrated the Passover meal and knew that he wouldn't be celebrating anymore. So said, please remember me because it's about to get ugly. So keep me alive in your hearts, maybe especially at this time. And then when we did, the same time we did this, we also stopped calling it the prayer of consecration. And so instead of words of institution, we would say the Last Supper narrative. And sometimes we would just say the Last Supper or the Lord's Supper. We just call it the Lord's Supper, and that includes everything. And because again, I don't need to consecrate bread. Bread comes from the earth. It's already holy. I don't need to consecrate wine. Wine comes from the grapes of the earth. It's already holy. I don't need to consecrate the meal. Our sharing it in love makes it holy. In fact, we've often said in the liturgy, your presence is the prayer that makes this a holy communion, that has sanctified these elements. And so we just stopped using the magic language actually years ago. So at first I was a little defensive. I'm like, we celebrate communion all the time. What are you talking about? But then I'm like, you know what? She's right in another way. But it wasn't just this week or this month or this year or whatever. We stopped using consecration language a long time ago, years ago. We still celebrate the Lord's Supper and we still let it mean whatever it needs to mean to you. And we change the liturgy in lots of ways so that it will appeal to different people at different times. But we really don't say the word consecration. And we don't say the words institution at it. And we certainly don't say the word blood. And usually not body. If we use the word body and I'm the celebrant, what I usually do is I do this motion. This is my body. And it's including the congregation. We are the resurrected and returned body of Christ. And so words matter. And we try to open them up. We usually talk about, we used to talk about opening bread instead of breaking bread. And now we've returned to breaking bread because the truth is, as the story is told, people were feeling broken and beaten. And this is a ritual that brings us together to lift us back up and make us feel whole again. And so, yeah, it's always in play. It's always in flux. It's always evolving. So we will always celebrate communion. And because we're doing it reverently and lovingly, you can think of that as consecration. But that is language that actually sort of just evolved out of our vocabulary several years ago. I think that's disturbing to some people that we would let sacraments be evolutionary, that I can't, and that's sometimes not by design. It just evolved into something else. Well, it's always done in memory of Jesus. It's always done as, as communion, union with one another and with our source. I mean, there's some things that are going to be constant because of intention, but how it's presented, it's a living thing, and living things evolve.
And that's what I like about it, because it evolves and the language becomes modern, and it's all about that sharing. And to me, that's more spiritual. It goes deeper into my heart than just trying to be magic. The other words were more about magic about it, but the way we do it is more real. It goes back to the foundation of, what we call the facts, or what we know about it, right? But it's more in tune with that century of what happened there.
And also, to go along with what you're saying and what Darrell just said about it being a living thing, is that if you're doing the same thing over and over and over, that's not living. That's, if you're not evolving, then you're not living. It's not a real life. I mean, if you're staying the same, you're actively dying. You are not actively living. So, to actively live is to evolve and to do things a little bit different, do something outside of your comfort zone. So,
yeah, you don't want to wash your face in a stagnant pond.
no.
Right?
Even though the River Jordan was dirty, it was running water. I mean,
it was not stagnant. It was nasty, but it was not stagnant. Honestly, that was one of the best moments of my life, being in the Jordan River, waist deep in the Jordan River. Yep. That and being in the upper room. Those were two of the most important moments in my life, for real. And I don't want to disparage. There are certain people that they've done it the same way every time for 50, 60, 70 years. And there's something to be said for that too. It's just not who we are at the Sunshine Cathedral. When I see people and they place everything exactly just so, and where it goes, and it's all very intentional, and there's something beautiful about that also. It's just not how we have developed. So I'm not being I don't mean to be pejorative about any of this, but just because that is beautiful and meaningful and very special to you does not mean that's the only way it can be done. And so our way may not be that way. That doesn't make it a lesser way, though. It's just one more way, and hopefully the way that we offer is, is a way somebody's looking for, and they wouldn't find it if somebody wasn't offering it. So we're happy to offer it.
Well, all righty. I'm going to wrap that up right there because I think that's a good place to stop. And we're just going to do a quick round robin. And since Tito lifted this plane off with the one and only question, Dennis, how do you
Thanks,
feel? Come on, Dennis, give us a word.
I feel left out. No, I'm kidding. All I'm gonna say is, Anne, be careful what you wish for. Taking confession from this one, that's a
She's
heavy.
not ready. She's not ready.
I'm just saying.
She ain't ready for all that.
That's it.
Okay, Tito, you got a thought?
No drink to that.
Tito, you got a thought?
So as you all saw at the beginning of the show, I'm easily distracted. So I actually really appreciate how we switch things up at the church, because otherwise it's like I lose focus sometimes, and also I get bored easily. So it's always something different, and sometimes it's the same, but it just switches a little bit. It's like, oh, okay. And something said one way, and then you switch it around, say it a different way, but it basically means the same thing. So it just keeps me alert. And also I learn a lot of new things when you do that. So I do appreciate that you guys do that at the church. I mean, the sacraments pretty much stay the same, just the way you present it definitely makes a difference for me, that you change it up from time to time.
The fun part for me is when it does change and I forget that it's changed and I do the oath. It's like, oops. All right, Margarita, land this plane for us.
All right. So I just want to end with a reminder that tomorrow is a special day in the United States. So just to be in the light that we are and demonstrate that, whatever it's, our party, it doesn't matter. It's about staying in the light and staying in peace, and just, be the best that you can be wherever you go.
All righty, then, as we wrap up, just a reminder, daily prayer Monday through Saturday at noon. This Wednesday is a special Share in the Chair. It would be kind of a pastoral response to the electoral process, and just kind of be an online presence for people who might need that. Is it 10 people, 15?
10.
10 people will be joining us from around the nation.
Reverend Terry C. Pierce is going to be on there.
She'll be there, and some others.
Reverend
So
Dr. Ann Atwell, she's going to be in there. Reverend Margarita Rodriguez, she's going to be on there. Yeah, there's 10 of us.
Reverend Dr. Wayne Davis will be there. So we got
Reverend Elder Pat Baumgardner,
a whole lineup of people.
Rabbi Noah Kitty.
My favorite people.
I know, right?
That's awesome.
So join us on Wednesday. You'll see who the rest of the people that would be on that for this discussion.
You know all of us.
So anyway, yeah, you're gonna know them all. But it's gonna be, I think, it'll be a great and impactful time just to be together, regardless how things may go, but just to be a presence and be sharing in communion in a different kind of way with one another. Then, of course, on Sunday, we invite you to join us for services in the room 9 at 10:30. If you're going to do that, need a reservation, wear a mask. Otherwise, join us online for the 10:30 live broadcast. And if you enjoy anything that we're doing, we invite you to make a donation to our broadcast ministry. You can do that through the Sunshine Cathedral website at sunshinecathedral.org. So that is us for this Monday for Christians and Cocktails. Thank you for being with us for a really, really wonderful, for me, really rich conversation, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think it was just, we needed to do what we needed to do. And sometimes we just have to go where it takes us. And this was a wonderful place that it took us down this path tonight. So thanks to the panel for being here. And we missed all those who are normal with us tonight. But for tonight, we're signing off from Christians and Cocktails. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bless you.
Bye.
Button.
Where's the button?
There it is.
Get out of here, Robert.
Are we still on?
Make
We're
it
still